So I literally closed this book about 5 minutes ago, and I'm feeling feelings. So without further ado, here's the vlog with Tori at the very beginning of Before They Are Hanged, who is blissfully ignorant of where she's going to end up at the end of this book. All right, guys, I'm vlogging this one too. So I have already gotten a little slice of the way through the beginning, and the first thing that I want to say about this book is coming off of The Blade itself, which if you watched my last vlog, you will know, I was a little bit kind of conflicted on how I was feeling about some of the characters and not sure how I felt about, yes, it's super character driven, but the amount of plot is so light that I was questioning how much of a character-driven reader I am. Not really, but you know what I mean. Like, I'm obviously a very character-driven reader. That being said, I realized I need maybe sometimes more plot than I think I do. I was going into it for Glokta and the Northern Crew. And Logan I really like, but I'm really curious to see how Abercrombie develops his Bloody Nine thing and all of that. So the beginning of this book, we immediately start off with the Northern Crew of Three Trees and Grimm and Black Dow and Dogman, and I was like, that couldn't have been a better hook for me in the beginning, because I would read an entire book. I'd read an entire book just about that crew, and I have been told by some First Law and the Abercrombie fans that I'm going to really love the heroes when I get that far, and I just can't wait. Then we got a Glokta chapter, and it was the perfect combination to pull me back into the book at the beginning and kind of assuage my fears of, is this gonna hook me still well enough in the beginning? Am I gonna want to come through book two? And the answer is yes. Okay, so I just did some reading sprints, and I wanted to say that Glokta's opening chapters, where he is now in Dagosca, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that changes the tone of his character, if at all. And Major West. Okay, so in book one, the moment of violence with Major West and his sister, as I mentioned in my first vlog, like right away in the beginning of this book, we're asked to sympathize with him because he's being sent to a place he doesn't want to be and given kind of a role that he doesn't want, and we're being asked to sympathize with that. I don't. Like, there's always a part of me that wants characters like this to make things right. I want him to have the redemptive arc where he fixes what he broke. I realize life isn't always like that, and so I'm not saying that if it doesn't end up that way that it's not realistic or I won't, whatever. I am really looking forward to the Northern Crew of Three Trees, Black Dow, Dogman, etc. now being amidst the Crown Princes potentially group. That could get interesting very quickly. Like, the contrast is going to be magnificent. I cannot wait. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel going into this book, but I am far enough into it now that I am feeling good about reading it and looking forward to doing the vlog. I think I just needed a few days to kind of step back and reassess how I felt about the book and articulate my feelings a little bit more. So now that I've done that, I'm ready to keep going. Okay, so I'm on page 106. And it says, no sounds beyond the giggling water, the slow wind slithering through the grass. I don't know how to imagine water giggling. Okay, also this little moment where Pharaoh and Logan are gonna go down and scope out the abandoned village, and Logan tells Jezal to come with him. although apparently we're calling him Luther now. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the growth for Jezal in this book. I'm only 100 pages in, but I have hope. I have hope that he's going to learn some things and he's in good company to teach him. Because Logan would be, I mean, if he ever, gets over his ego long enough to pay attention, he might learn something. I think one of the things that I'm noticing is a lot of people talk about how these books don't have a lot of plot. It's very much character driven, and I completely agree with both of those things. But I do think that the way that Abercrombie is writing this story, we talk a lot in military fantasy about the reality of the battle and the action isn't as big of a part of the reality as we think it is. It's a lot of waiting. It's a lot of sitting in the mud. It's a lot of moving pieces from here to there. It's a lot of planning, sometimes for months or years of time, and setting everything up and being patient and watching and learning about your adversaries and all of this sort of stuff. And I feel like that's what this book really embodies. Not just this book, but the trilogy so far really kind of embodies that breath before, not the breath they didn't know they were holding. And there's this tension that is building in the waiting and the very careful moving of pieces. I absolutely love the Northmen so much. Their chapters are so entertaining, but they're not just the comic relief, right? They're very funny characters, but there's so much there. And I mean, it's just giving me all the Motley Crue vibes that I could possibly want right now, and I'm here for that. Pharaoh still isn't my favorite character, I'm not gonna lie. I'm still not connecting or enjoying her character as much, but I will say that I definitely don't dislike her as much as I did in book 1. And I think part of that is because she's kind of integrating into the Motley Crue that Logan is in now. As much as Jezal needs some sense knocked into his pretty foppish head, I think I still am finding his perspective really entertaining and interesting to read, because I'm not expecting something of him that he isn't. And there was a moment, I think, in the chapter before I just finished, where there's a line that says something about Jezal for the first time was dimly aware of the posh life he had led. It's like the crumbs of self-awareness, we live for it. Logan is endearing himself so much to me more in this book because of the way he's trying to pull this group together. You can see where his original Northman crew came from, and I love that. I love that Abercrombie is showing us the origins of how Logan brings people together. People that possibly hate each other, or people that don't typically, would never work together outside of this situation. So that's all of my thoughts currently. And yeah, I feel like this book, you can see Abercrombie really leaning into those characterizations that he was starting off on such a good foot with in book 1, and just really upping the ante in this, and I'm enjoying it immensely. All right, guys, so it is 1 a.m. and I can't sleep, so I figured I would read some more of Before They Are Hanged. It is May 2nd now, and now that the month of April is done, my life has slowed down a little bit, and I'm going to try and get back into this and keep chugging along. I'm almost to page 200, and I have some things to say about some of the other characters. There's a siege happening, and I'm not gonna lie, when we left Glokta in the Blade itself, I was not necessarily anticipating this to be the direction that Abercrombie was gonna take him. I'm not mad about it. I love the switch of power, like I mentioned before. So I'm curious to see if we're gonna get some actual real action going on here, because there's a massive army coming to the walls of Dagosca, and Glokta is just waiting for it. So obviously he's putting things in place. I'm not trying to say he's not doing anything, because we know that, he's a man on a mission. That being said, I'm very curious to see what the next 100 pages of this look like. or if we're not going to get to any sort of battle until the end of the book. I have no idea. I'm trying not to make any predictions because who knows? Kwai, I think is how you pronounce his name, is a very interesting character, and I really am starting to like him. I feel like in the first book, he was a little bit this kind of flimsy, hapless wizard's apprentice who never got anything right and was really reserved and quiet, and, now he's kind of giving me slightly different vibes. Is he gonna turn out to be something more than he seems? I don't know. I'm kind of confused by Baez a little bit. Which I get is probably the point at this point, but I'm not sold on Baez as a character yet. I'm really not. One of the things I do appreciate is that while this is a soft magic system, I do like that it has consequences, because that is something I always appreciate in magic systems, where it's like, it's not just this unending pool of power that you can draw from. It's a limited resource, right? And it costs something. I'm gonna go and see if Glokta and Casca can save Dagaska and what's going to happen with this, because I'm invested. I need to know if the flooded ditch is going to stop the Gurkish army from laying siege. And now the docks are under watch and Glokta is concerned. So I'm concerned. Okay, I'm still up because I have some things to say. The Crown Prince needs to go stuff his head in a sock, okay? Like, I'm so not stressed. I'm angry and like, I don't even know what the right word is. I'm tense. There's a good word. I am tense about the Crown Prince because I cannot stand characters like the Crown Prince. He is an absolute nightmare of a human being who does not care anything for anyone else but himself, and is the perfect example of glorifying war to the cost of everyone around you. Like, at least Jezal is starting to grow a little bit of a brain out there, because he has some good, theoretically good, influences. It's weird to consider Pharaoh and Logan good influences at this point, but just roll with me here. Major West, I understand that he's afraid of losing his position, but he also should not be standing for this, and he is also being a coward and not saying anything. I am nervous that he is going to let the Crown Prince march all of these men to their death and not say anything. And if he does, I think his character may cross the line of irredeemable for me. I really hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping for Major West to have a moment where he is the traditional hero for just a second, but I'm honestly expecting this entire group of soldiers to go to the mud. And to be honest, the only thing that makes that even worse is if they do that and the Crown Prince somehow survives. So anyways, it's been a little while since I had an anxious rant in the kitchen about a book, and I have missed it, honestly. So that's where we're at, and I know the next chapter is Glokta, and I'm not entirely sure that that's going to be less stressful. So you have to get to a point where you're like, why am I rooting for these guys again? Why do I want them to survive? I want certain characters to survive. But honestly, I'm with the Northern crew. Three Trees is like, screw this, I'm out, dude. And I'm like, yeah, take me with you. I'm going to finish this last chapter, and then I'm going to go to bed, and then I'm sure I will have more to tell you guys tomorrow. I was hoping to read a little bit more this week, but I ended up having a little bit more appreciation for Glokta and his struggles because I threw my back out 2 days ago and couldn't walk for the first 12 hours. So warning to the wise, if you're reading this book, just be aware that it may be a little bit more immersive than you think. Jezal got his face busted, which, I mean, didn't really see it coming, but I totally get it. And the whole Logan saying you're one of us now as Jezal is getting his face put back together. Talk about a mindset shift. Like, that is going to be interesting to see how he handles that. The Eaters are very interesting. So this is Joe Abercrombie's version of zombies, basically, is what I'm gathering out of this. I'm still, I mean, that soft magic system is still going strong. I have no idea how any of this works, but it's all there. I don't know. Baez has been out for a while. I'm like, dude, maybe you shouldn't, you know, use quite so much magic. You'd think after however many hundreds of years old he is, or thousands of years old, he would have figured out how to pace himself a little bit better, but I guess not. Okay guys, so I just finished the chapter So This Is Pain from Jezal's point of view after he takes the mace to the face. Everything I wanted more of in the characterization of the characters outside of Glokta, I'm getting. Like, Glokta's good in this book, but I feel like the other characters have just been leveled up. And Logan playing this, like, awkward father figure to Jezal is a beautiful thing, and it's making me love Logan so much more. And like this kind of suggested redemption arc that Jezal is on right now is really making me almost emotional, I'm not gonna lie. Seeing him come to terms with what he loved most about himself, which were all very shallow things, and now some of those are being stripped away, and he is really coming to terms with who he is as a person, and he's having to confront the mirror, so to speak. I love that. I love reading it in books. I have more to say, and I know that I want to talk about Glokta and the siege. The scene where he goes and talks to the Haddish priest about, and he asks him, do you have compassion for these dying men? And Glokta's like, no. I wish I did, I think. Like, the first book was good. This book is such a massive level up, in my opinion. I think it's fantastic. West just killed the Crown Prince, and I did not see that coming. Like, West just snapped. Whoa. I knew he was gonna snap. I was not expecting it to be that level of snap. So the fact that he just flat out reacted on Cathel's behalf gives me hope for the future, and the fact that he may, like, maybe fix things with Artie at some point down the road, and that would be great. We'll see. Glokta just left to go back to the Archlector. We have this siege, and we, like Glokta says at the end of this chapter, all the scheming, all the plotting, all the fighting, all the sacrifices, for what? And I feel like there's a sense of realism in this book where sometimes they don't get to see the end of the siege. Sometimes, like, the way the story should go, if it's being outlined and laid out in a nice, neat literary package, isn't always realistic. There's so many things in the second half of this book that go against what I expect a fantasy book to do. And that is something I appreciate. But yeah, I'm getting close to page 400 now, and I'm gonna try and get through as much of this today as I can, and we'll see if I can get all the way through. I'm on the last 30 pages, and things are going a little crazy. I didn't really see Prince Reynald's death coming, but I wasn't really surprised by it either. And as far as the Archlector not caring about the truth of actually what happened and just trying to get a confession out of the easiest guy available, I think we get kind of caught up in seeing Glokta as this kind of heartless, or he's trying to show himself as a heartless torturer, but then you put him next to Archlector Salt, and it's like, that's what a heartless torturer actually looks like. There's a battle coming up, and I don't even know necessarily that I'm rooting for the Union per se. I'm rooting for certain characters, obviously, to survive, but I'm not really invested in like one side versus the other because they're both questionable. Abercrombie hasn't really killed anyone, like in the main cast. Like there's nobody has died that I care about. It's stressful. I'm stressed, guys. I'm stressed. So I'm gonna go finish the 30 pages and we're gonna see what happens. I knew it. I knew somebody was going down. And of course, it had to be somebody from my motley crew of Northmen. And I would just like to say right now, officially, I love Glokta. I think he's a brilliant character, and I love him to bits and pieces. But the Northmen are my favorites. I feel like Dogman felt at the end of this book, where he's just lost. Everything's a mess. I think it's really fascinating that Abercrombie, I know it's Abercrombie, I'm working on it, bear with me. I know that Joe Abercrombie subverts tropes. That's part of what he does so well as an author. And I think there were so many things in the end of this that, you know, the siege of Dagaska kind of was for nothing in a sense, and Glokta obviously wrestles with that to some degree, and I don't know how that's going to factor into book 3. And then we follow Bayaz and Logan and Pharaoh and Jezal and Quai, etc., etc. We get to the end and we're finding this magical artifact that, like in all the other fantasy books, we have this moment where we find the magical artifact and it's this massive explosion of, wow, look at this cool thing, and it's so, wow. It's a rock and it's a fake one, and it was just this kind of, he's doing such a good job making me feel what the characters are feeling, right? Because, you know, Logan and Pharaoh and Jezal being like, that's it. The feeling I got with Dogman at the end of the book, where I was just kind of feeling lost, like I was just standing out in a field staring at the graves with him and was just feeling lost and not knowing where the crew is going to go after this. The feeling of anticlimactic letdown that I felt when Pharaoh clutches this rock and it's just a rock and they've been foiled, and then Glokta's, I went to Dagaska and all these people died and I sat there for weeks and weeks and weeks trying to make sure this city did not fall into Gurkish hands, and then it did. And now I'm here, and now is this for nothing? Somebody murdered a crown prince, and then the wrong man was executed, and now I'm just supposed to do nothing about it? Like, I think there's a very gritty reality to this that I'm really appreciating, because I think oftentimes in fantasy the threads get tied up too neatly. The characters kind of move from goalpost to goalpost in a very smooth literary way, which can be really fun to read as a reader, and plenty of the books that I like have that as their writing style. But this one just feels so real. I do feel like it's something that really heavily subverts my expectations, but in a way that is done well. There's a reason for it. There's an intentionality behind it. The one thing that I got really tired of, and this is a me thing, I think, as you all know, romance and frisky times are not typically my preferred story elements. And I did think that Cathil and Dogman, I don't know, I found them to be very sweet, especially at the very end when she died, and Dogman's reaction and the way that Three Trees has to reach down and let him know, like, hey, you don't need to wrap her in this blanket, she's gone. If you've watched till this point, I hope you enjoyed watching my second First Law vlog. I really liked this second book a lot. I think I'm very curious to see where book 3 goes, and I will probably not be reading it this month, but I do intend to read it in the very near future, and I will be vlogging that one as well, because I want to know how this thing ends, and now I'm concerned. I'm concerned, and I'm not gonna lie, it hurts my heart that Three Trees is not gonna be in book 3. Like, honestly, he could have killed probably anyone else outside of the Northman crew, and I would have been fine. I'd have been like, oof, that hurt, but okay. I think this book just goes to show how much of a Motley Crew fanatic I am, because once again, here I am sitting here, and the Motley Crew, those are my boys, and I love their chapters, and I adore them all so much, and I love the uniqueness and distinctness of each of their characters together. And they're just a bunch of rough barbarians that have like the tiniest splinter of a decent human being somewhere in them. That is my immediate reaction 5 to 10 minutes after finishing this book. I would love to know down in the comments how you feel about book 2 in this series versus book 1, versus how you think I'm going to enjoy book 3, predictions, all of that good stuff. If you enjoyed watching this vlog and you're interested in supporting the channel, I do have a Patreon down in the description box below. If you join my Patreon, you get access to a exclusive Discord where I share a lot more about my writing process and the stories that I'm working on right now. Thank you guys so much for coming along on my journey through this series, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Until then, I hope you're reading great reads, I hope you're having a great week, and I'll see you in the next video. Having us feel like we are one...
Sounds good. I just sent it back with the first half of notes just so that it's there, and I'm going to dive into the second half of the new draft.